All right. Hello, everybody. I have Emily Penton on with us today. Uh, Myself and Annabelle are huge fans of Emily and her story. And Emily, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And it's such an honor to have you on. I was wondering if you could start by just telling us about your story a little bit, because you have such an inspirational and fascinating story. And give us a bit of background as to, what brought us to where you are now, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy. And if it hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't believe it. So I'm asking a lot of listeners to hear my story and believe it because it's bizarre. Like it doesn't make sense on so many levels. But basically, in 2018, so almost 4 years ago, I had debilitating mental illness, and it had went into rapid cycling. I had bipolar disorder, and bipolar disorder, technically, it gives you kind of a reprieve or gives you a little bit of a break where you go into mania and then you go into depression over a period of like 3 months or, years. Mine went into rapid cycling, which meant every single day I didn't know who I was going to be. I didn't know when I woke up and changed during the day. And I was working as a therapist in a private practice, and I would go to work and have like my first 4 clients of the day and then hit that wall, and I'd have to working for 6 months and move in with my mother at the age of 40. And it was just so embarrassing. And so just, it really just kind of decayed my spirit and made me feel so worthless and so hopeless. And as I was there, I got kicked while I was down, and I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. At one point, I couldn't walk without an assistive device. I had delayed and slurred speech, and I had more significant brain fog than I ever had with bipolar disorder. So I was either going to the psych ward or I was going to the nursing home, or multiple times I thought about just ending my life. It didn't matter that I had my master's degree in clinical counseling because I was incapacitated. I was in bed, and then now I couldn't walk. It was just devastating. And my brother is not a nice person. And he reached out and did a nice thing. And he sent me the first chapter of Amber O'Hearn's book. And it was just on audio. And I listened to it laying in the bathtub. I literally couldn't do anything but listen to it. And the first chapter is 22 minutes. And it changed my life. There was something inside of me that just clicked, that said, if this woman 10 plus years ago could resolve her bipolar disorder eating animal meat and animal fat, it's possible that I could. And that's all I needed, was the possible, because I was in so much hopelessness and worthlessness that I just needed that hope that it was possible. And I jumped in. And because I'm bipolar, I jumped in with both feet, and I just ripped the Band-Aid off. I went straight from the standard American diet to 50% animal meat and 50% animal fat. And 50%, what I say is by the pile. I had a pile of meat and a pile of fat. So I'm sure it was more like 80-20 or something like that, as far as, the way that people measure fat and protein. Anyway, when I was eating the standard American diet, I was eating entire pizzas by myself, entire pies by myself, pieces and pieces of cakes by myself, cartons of ice cream. Whenever I would cook cookies, I would make 2 batches so that I could eat the raw dough of one batch, and I could cook cookies and eat the entire batch of cookies with the other batch. So I wasn't just like healthy or like vegan, or like I didn't even eat vegetables, like nothing. And I ripped the Band-Aid off, went from that to 50% animal meat, 50% animal fat overnight, February 24th of 2019. And I had my last depressive episode, bipolar episode, so manic or depressive episode, in April of 2019. So February 24th to April, no more. I was still on my psych meds. At my most, I was on 900 milligrams of lithium, 80 milligrams of Prozac, 80 milligrams of Adderall just to get out of bed every day, and then Ambien to sleep every night. And so I kept my meds. And then I just continued getting better. Stopped having any bipolar episodes in April, May 9th of 2019. So February 24th to May 9th of 2019, I had no more MS symptoms. You don't get over bipolar disorder and you don't get over MS. You get worse. You stay on medication. My last psych med was September of 2019. So this is 3+ years later. I've stayed out of the psych ward. I went back to work full time in June of 2019. I've been knocking it out of the park ever since. Now I don't even work a day job. I just do coaching full time. And my life is, I don't even recognize it. It's better than ever. And it just keeps getting better. So that's my story. Crazy.
That's incredible. I just have to ask a question based around that. So from the time you said you started until the time you had your last bipolar episode, it was about 2 months. Yeah. What was that transition like, going from that crazy, obviously like eating pies and pizza and all? I mean, it's not really crazy. I mean, that's just kind of the American diet, but how did it go from that to the transition of carnivore? I can't imagine you just felt, yay, wow, I feel great overnight. Like, what, did it take a bit of time? Like, what happened there?
Oh yeah, it took definitely a lot of time. I would say I transitioned for about a month. But what was really a blessing to me was my bipolar and my MS already felt like absolute pure hell. And I was in the deepest misery that I've ever been in my entire life. And so transition was just a new pile of horrible. It was literally nothing for me. Like a little bit more body aches, but I already had body aches from the MS. A little bit more nausea, a little bit more, headaches. But it was nothing compared to what I was already experiencing. And then when it lifted, oh my goodness, I didn't remember what it felt like to experience joy. And when I had that glimpse of hope, my very first glimpse of hope was 10 minutes. It was just 10 minutes, but it was like the most surreal experience for me. I was just like, I just had a positive thought. I just thought about the future and it was beautiful. And then it went away. It was only for 10 minutes. And then the next day it was 15 minutes. And then it just progressively got better to now I literally, like, you could smack me in the face and I would be like, wow, I wonder what you're going through. Okay, so what can I learn from this situation? Like, I don't even recognize myself.
That's absolutely incredible. Annabelle, I know you have lots of questions, so I'll let you take the lead here.
Yeah, there's a lot of things here. So I understand a bit with the whole mental health thing, because when I was at boarding school, my friends and we all used to eat the same way. It was just abnormal, the food and the quality, and just, I guess we could call it the almost binging, but without it actually being a binge eating disorder, just copious amounts of junk food. And my mental health started to suffer. I was having panic attacks daily, and I couldn't breathe. So I know about the connection of, the gut and the brain and how important it is. I can't imagine this at the level that you're speaking of. My first question for you, though, in relation to this is, with your standard American diet, would you have considered yourself to have some kind of an eating disorder back then? Or was it just something that you felt was normal and natural for you? Did you ever question what you were doing before you listened to Amber O'Hearn?
Never. I never
No.
thought about it. I never even tried going on a diet. I was 250 pounds. I forgot to say that. I lost 120 pounds because it doesn't matter to me at all. I loved being a big girl. I felt like a woman, like curvaceous, and it was my culture. I'm from Southeast Missouri, and we all look like that. Like literally all of us look like that. And we all eat like that. Like there's a potluck at every event, every single event. It doesn't matter if it's a church event, a school event, a community event, there is crap food everywhere. And so it didn't occur to me that it was my food at all. And I'm in the mental health field, and that's never talked about, so I'm on the cutting edge. I know everything. I know about all the psych meds. I know about all the therapeutic modalities. Nope, that wasn't it. That absolutely wasn't it. And for me, I tried juicing for a while, juicing vegetables and stuff and fruit. And I would try to be healthy, but it was not sustainable because I was starving. I was so hungry. And then I would get irritable, and then I would quit. I think the most I would do something like that was like 3 weeks. And then I would go back to the donuts and the cookies and the cookie dough and wine and, ice cream pizza, just horrible, like no nutritional value whatsoever. And that's whenever I started eating carnivore, my brain was just like so happy. It was just like, oh, we're finally getting the nutrients that we need and that we want. So that was my process.
During the transition phase, what made you not quit when it was uncomfortable?
My superpower is my bipolar disorder. And so it allowed me to jump in and dig my heels in. And so I fear that if I hadn't experienced that glimpse of hope, that I wouldn't have been able to continue, but it was just a long enough bipolar cycle that I was able to just stay like hyper focused and obsessed. I was obsessed about my only job every day was to eat a ribeye or 2 ribeyes or 3 ribeyes, whatever I wanted, bacon, sausage, chicken wings, salmon with the skin on, like whatever was fatty meat. I was obsessed with doing that. And it paid off. But I also had a knowing. There was this knowing inside of me that I knew that this was the path. And then whenever I realized that I needed less inflammation in my body for the MS, it was like a twofold thing. And I was like, okay, I'm beating MS and bipolar. I got to keep going. And so I just kept going. And then of course, when everything resolved, I was just like, you can't tell me nothing.
Did you have any particular cravings in the beginning? As in, I don't mean cravings towards the old habits and the sad diet, but for specific meat or fat related carnivore foods?
Definitely ribeyes. Ribeyes were my jam. Ribeyes were my everything. And the fat. I mean, I had a visceral response when I would put fat in my mouth. Like my eyes would roll back in my head and I would just be like, oh, like I would make a guttural like noise. I would be like, oh, like it was everything to me. And I never felt like that. I mean, I would feel like that when I was like eating a carton of ice cream or I used to eat icing out of the container, peanut butter. Oh my gosh, I was so addicted to nut butters with honey. So addicted. I would actually have it on my nightstand so that if I woke up at like 2:00 in the morning, I could like reach over and like scarf down a couple of tablespoons and then go back to sleep. That's how addicted I was to nut butter.
Oh, don't get me started on nut butters. I used to, if you go back through my previous videos, that was my kryptonite. I would go to Trader Joe's, get a thing of like sun butter or peanut butter.
Oh, sun butter was the worst.
Get a spoon. This would be my dinner, by the way. Get a spoon behind the counter from the cashier. and just wolf it down. That would be my dinner. Literally a whole jar of sun butter would be my
Oh,
dinner.
sun butter was everything to me, everything to me. And I thought it was healthy. I thought that was the one healthy thing in my diet.
Oh, wow. Okay, so your first reaction you had, the positive reaction on the carnivore diet, was that what you just told us about? So the positive thoughts, or did you notice any other physical things like, oh wow, I feel like slightly less inflamed, or my hair feels a little bit more, I don't know, shiny, or anything, I guess, more physical? Did you experience that too?
Honestly, I was in such a fog that even if it had presented itself, it was like I had like blinders on. Like I had this like hoodie of just darkness and confusion. And it was like I would just go through the motions of my day. And there were times that like I would come out of my room and I would literally not even speak to my family. I would just grunt at them. And I was
Wow.
like, but that's how I was for years. Like I would
Wow.
just be like, and it was only when I was in my mania that I was able to function and talk and knock it out of the park. But in my depression, and then once I lived with my mom, thought I was just all depression.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so even if I did experience any of it, I wasn't cognizant enough, and I was sleeping like 13 hours a day,
Wow.
even sleeping 8 hours a night. Like it was horrible.
Okay. So you mentioned in an interview that I listened to actually with someone, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was. It's a while ago, but I never forgot this because ever since then I became hyper cautious, thinking, oh, okay, what's the quality of the meat? Because you mentioned that you were eating supermarket CAFO meat and you were fine until you weren't fine. And so what was that? What happened?
We will never know, because I threw out that meat. If I had all the money in the world, um, I would have taken it to a lab and I would have found out what was in those $3.99 a pound ribeyes. But there was something in the ribeyes that I don't know if it was a some kind of a preservative or some kind of a chemical that they wash it with or something. And like I said, I was fine for the whole first year eating out of the grocery store. And it was like my bucket got full of toxins and I just literally couldn't take anymore. And normal people are fine. I think normal people can process all the toxins that are in grocery store meat. But let's be honest, there's toxins. There's no way that it can be on that shelf to process, going from the farmer, from the butcher to that grocery store and have that beautiful pink red look without there being some kind of a preservative on that. And so I couldn't process that toxin, whatever that is. I have no idea. I don't understand the science of it. But my body, with the autoimmune disease, with the MS, I couldn't process it. Thankfully, I was surrounded by just a circle of beautiful, beautiful carnivores who helped me troubleshoot it. And they helped me find a local farm. And instantly, as soon as I ate that meat and I promised to never go back to the grocery store, I had no reactions and I was totally fine. And honestly, I think it's better now that I've understood the whole cycle of life and investing in my local community. I would much rather put my dollar in my local farmer than in the grocery store with the, big corporate, CAFOs and stuff like that. So I'm really happy that this happened, because it's made me more connected to my meat. Like I feel more grounded being able to shake my farmer's hand and see my cows and put my boots on the ground of my farm. It's not my farm, but you know what I mean.
Emily,
What was the
oh, sorry, go
sorry,
ahead, Annabelle.
I was just saying, what exactly was the reaction you had to that meat? And I guess on aside from that, I'm really shocked that they are allowed to not list if there is something, some chemical or preservatives or some kind of washed. I don't know if we have that here in Europe, but that's shocking. And I guess that's something that everybody should be looking out for.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know that the regulations here are a joke. They're absolutely a joke. It's completely different in other countries. But they allow foods in this country that they have banned in other countries. So it's not a surprise to me that the government is not transparent about what's in the meat at all. My reactions were that I had not had any MS symptoms or bipolar symptoms. So like I said, since April and May of 2019. And this was, I believe, December. I'd have to go back and look at my videos. I'm pretty sure it was like December of 2019 that this happened. But all of a sudden, when I ate those $3.99 a pound ribeyes for 7 days, on the 7th day, I found myself curled up in the fetal position for, I believe it was 3 hours, just sobbing over nothing. Nothing happened. There was no relational trauma. There was no situational trauma. There was no financial trauma. Like nothing happened. I was just crying. There was this doom that just came over me. And I couldn't even tell you why I was crying, but I was literally in the fetal position shaking. And I was like, okay, this is what bipolar used to be like. I recognize this feeling. I'm not going back. And then I went to work. And then that day I came home and I took my pants off to go to sleep. And my legs were trunks, absolute trunks. Like I have video of it, and you could I would push in on my ankles, and I had pitted edema, and I gained 15 pounds within, I believe it was a week.
Wow.
And so there was something that my body just could not process, the toxins. And then of course I switched to the local regenerative grass-fed beef, and I was fine. It went away within 2 weeks, a week.
Wow. Scott, sorry, what was your question?
Well, so, we talked earlier, you said that your body has changed in a lot of different ways, right? So things, some reason changed, I sort of looking at myself in a self-indulgent way, and some other people I've talked to, like some people might do well with red meat for a while, and then it kind of turns on them after a while, and they don't do so well with red meat or high fat. What has been your experience with that? And is there any kind of workaround with that? Can you do carnivore without doing the higher fat, or what's your experience?
Yeah, I have found that everybody is different. I have found some trends with my clients, that the people with autoimmune disease and the people with mental illness do better to heal at the beginning with high fat, and specifically animal fat, not dairy and coconut oil and avocados and all those other fats, specifically animal fat, like fatty pork butt, ribeyes, beef fat trimmings, salmon with the skin on, chicken with the skin on, those kind of animal fats. But I also know that what's beautiful is once the inflammation clears out, then they are able to tap into their inner clarity, their inner being a little bit more, because before they're so confused, they're so just chock full of inflammation that they literally cannot make decisions. And then once the noise clears out, then they're clear, and they're like, you know what? I think I need to tweak this. I think I have an idea. And I tell them, go experiment for yourself. and then they navigate their own path. And that's far more powerful than me sitting here dictating to them, you should do X, Y, and Z for, 3 weeks, and then you should try A, B, and C. No, you can tap into your inner clarity and let that guide you.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Annabelle?
Yeah, speaking of inner clarity and your life changing, you've started to take on a lot more projects recently, such as your incredible food freedom prayer group on Facebook. So what brought on the inspiration to start doing more?
The food freedom prayer group was something I was very resistant to because I didn't see the correlation. I've always been a very spiritual person, but I didn't understand why I should pray about food freedom. But I noticed that that's what I was doing in a lot of my sessions, my one-on-one sessions with my clients, was that I was praying for them to break their addictions to sugar and processed foods. Because y'all, I'll be totally honest with you, I don't think any of this is about food. I think it's about spiritual and emotional things and emotional traumas that get trapped in our bodies and they need to process. I think that food can exacerbate the problem. And that's why when we remove the blocks, we can get more to the healing, because we're intrinsically healthy people. We are these beautiful beings that already know how to heal ourselves. We're just blocked. We're just confused. We're just junked up with all this inflammation. And so whenever you remove the inflammation, that's whenever the healing just happens. And so I went out on a limb, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to start this group. And I started a Facebook group with my food freedom prayer meeting, and we meet every week, and I just hit record and we pray. And it has expanded into praying for the farmers, praying for the ranchers, praying for the truckers, praying for the government that is regulating the laws around our food freedom. And it's not a fear-based prayer like, oh, the sky is falling, God help us. It is a very powerful prayer. It is allow us to operate in our power to exhibit whatever role you have for us, God. And it's just been beautiful. I never would have imagined that people would continue showing up, and I haven't even advertised it except for that very first meeting. And people keep coming, and so I'll just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of emotional trauma being stored in your system, it's something that I've really explored recently with limbic training and doing this sort of neuroplasticity training and sort of rewiring your brain to think differently, right? Is that something that you've explored as well, or?
Yes, somewhat. Not limbic. That sounds really interesting. I would love to know more about that. But I personally have worked with. Have you heard of the emotion code?
No.
Sorry.
Emotion code.
No.
It's a book by I believe his name is Bradley Nichols, and he wrote the emotion code, and it's talking about processing trapped emotions that are in our body. And I work with an emotion code practitioner. I've been working with her every month for 2 years, and she has helped me process, because if you can imagine 40 years of mental illness, I had a lot of trapped emotions, and I had a lot of trauma that I perpetuated in my life through my relationships. And I had a lot of healing to do and a lot of rebuilding to do in relationships with my family, and relationships with myself. I had, oh my gosh, I had all of these horrible, horrible thoughts about myself, that I was this worthless, horrible person. And through this 2 years of emotion code, work that she did with me, I was able to release a lot of that. And so that's why I say, I don't think this is just about food. I think it's beyond food. I think that food is like the gateway, but that there's so much more.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just going to say that, I find it interesting. I mean, I was just looking at that very quickly, the emotion code, and it looks very similar to what I was just talking about, the sort of rewiring of your brain and limbic training. But one thing I've really noticed, I don't know if you notice this with your mental illness as well, something I really deal with, that when you have some kind of project going on, or you go on vacation, or you have fun, or something, a bit of a window seems to open up sometimes. I mean, you could be really sick for like a month. And then it's like I had a conversation with Courtney Jacobs on my video a couple of videos ago. And she said you could go to Hawaii, and then all of a sudden you land and, that's strange. I feel a little bit better. Is that something that you would notice as well in I guess, going through your mental illness?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's funny, because that's actually a whole section in my 8-week system that I do with my clients, is to prioritize joy and to put joy first. Like literally put joy on your schedule, on your to-do list. And I have it on my schedule, that I have to do that just as much as I have to do laundry, or I have to do the dishes, or I have to, schedule interviews or appointments with clients. I do not miss ever my appointments with my joy, because I know how foundational it is. And that's where my inspiration comes. Whenever I walk outside with my bare feet on the ground and the sun in my eyes, or the sun on my skin, and I hear the trees move, and I feel the wind on my skin, I have insights, I have ideas, I have things that come alive inside of me that will never come when I'm sitting at this desk in front of this computer under these lights. It's just, I'm paralyzed. My brain literally can't go there. But when I go to my joy, or I get, oh my gosh, running water on my feet, like in a creek, when I stick my feet in a creek and I don't have my cell phone in my hand, it's like a whole nother world of thoughts that come to me. It's almost like the universe is like, oh, she's listening. She's paying attention to us. And so it's just like opens this portal, and I'm able to have these ideas, and then I'm able to go back to my office and back to my notes and like write down, okay, well, I had this idea and this idea and this idea, but I have to have that appointment to unlock that. I can't wait until I go to Hawaii for a vacation. I have to schedule it in my appointments every week.
Scott?
Yeah. No, I'm good. Well, one thing before I get, if you have any more questions, Annabelle, I want to just share the screen for a second here. Let me just open it up. All right. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Emily, that's you, right?
Yeah, that's me.
I can't even recognize you. Look at this amazing transformation. How long did that transformation take?
Well, that picture was from May of 2017, but that is exactly what I looked like in February of 2019. So I unfortunately, or fortunately, I didn't take pictures of myself. I had gotten that brand new car in 2000. Well, it wasn't brand new. It was 3 years old in 2017. And so somebody took a picture of me by my car. And so I don't have many pictures of me in 2019 because I was so mentally ill. But that's what I looked like. And you wouldn't know that unless you go talk to my family. Because I didn't take pictures. I don't have any video footage of me not being able to walk. because you just don't think to do that. I had no idea it was going to get better. It was just pure misery. So basically from February of 2019, and then that second picture was taken, I believe, December of 2019. So that's literally the transformation. And sometimes I hate to tell people that story because those results are not typical. Most people can't jump in the way that I jumped in. And I didn't cheat. The first day, I remember I had a tablespoon of honey and I reported to my brother, and I was like, I ate this and this and this and this and this, and a tablespoon of honey. And he said, why the tablespoon of honey? And I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, don't do that. And I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't do that. And so I don't know, but a lot of people, and that's the whole reason I have a job, is because most people cannot do what I did. And they need me to hold their hand through this process, and they need it to go gradually. I just went overnight, and then the weight just melted off of me. And all of that weight that you see in that before picture was inflammation. A lot of it was inflammation. It was not just fat. So
yeah, that photo and that transformation is crazy. But of course, you always speak about how it's actually the mental and spiritual transformation that was so much bigger. And of course, that's really important to note, because otherwise that physical transformation wouldn't have been possible in the first place. So now, you mentioned that mentally things keep getting better and better for you every day. So what are some of the things that you have experienced more recently that are bringing you more joy on this kind of carnivore journey and on your coaching journey?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I was having a kind of a complicated time where I would, at the beginning, I didn't know that I could coach. I had no idea. And so my brain was still very compartmentalized, that I was a therapist. And then on my off time, I was answering questions about carnivore on social media. And so I would be literally up to like 3 o'clock in the morning, messaging people in other countries, helping them troubleshoot their carnivore journey. And they were mentally ill. They were so sick that they were in bed and they couldn't even get to a doctor or a mental health professional. But I could show them love. I could do that. And then I quickly realized, thankfully, my husband is brilliant, and he set some boundaries on me. And he was just like, okay, like, you need to only respond during these hours. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I need that boundary. And then I realized that I don't fit in at my job. I would sit there in front of my clients, and they would have bipolar disorder, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, all of these things. And I couldn't talk to them about food. The insurance panels, the licensing board, they didn't want me to talk to my clients about food. And so I quickly realized that I just don't belong there. And I really had to have some really heart-to-heart conversations with myself and with my husband. And I quickly realized that I don't care if I'm called a therapist. I don't care if there's letters behind my name. Call me a coach. I just want to be effective. I just want to help people realize that the injury that they might be getting from food, and the possibility of really walking in their health and their wellness. And so I became a coach. And then I went into another obstacle where people couldn't afford to work with me. And that was difficult for me, because before I had always accepted Medicaid. And now as a coach, you can't accept Medicaid. And it was never an option before that people, even poor people, could work with me because their Medicaid paid for it. But now it was self-pay. And so I was just like, what can I do? And I would lay in bed at night and just think about the stories of the people that reached out to me that I couldn't help because I had to have those boundaries. I can't help everybody. And then God really spoke to me, and he said, but you can help everybody for 1 hour a week. And I was like, I can do that. And so I started this Zoom meeting. Oh my gosh, it's been, I don't even know, 9, 10, 11, 12 months. It's been a long time. It's every Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and it's open to everyone. It's open to the whole world. And anybody can come into this Zoom meeting and ask me whatever questions they want to ask me. And then I have people come in and share their testimony. They share their story about how carnivore helped them, or how they resolved their autoimmune disease or their mental illness. And then the coolest part is that I get to record these and I put them up on my YouTube channel. And so people get to watch these. And people, what I've found is people who are so mentally ill that they can't even muster up the power and the strength to go into a Zoom meeting, but they can click play on a YouTube video. And they feel like they're in those, and they send me emails and they're like, you changed my life. You changed my life. Thank you so much for recording these meetings and putting them up on YouTube. And so that has been transformative for me, because now I can go to sleep at night and know and feel like I am accessible to everyone. It just depends on where they're at on this journey. And, you know, it doesn't matter that they don't have the money to hire me.
With your story and your journey, do you feel like this was all meant to be, as though this kind of whole thing was designed by God to make you who you are today? Because it's incredible. And sometimes I feel like I'm being led by a bigger force than by God, because, you know, the things that have happened to me, I just think I wouldn't just have been able to do any of this, you know, by myself with my own power. It has to be coming from somewhere else. So now looking back on it, how do you feel about everything? And was always an important part of your life, even when you were still ill?
Annabelle, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't change one thing. I wouldn't. I wouldn't change one thing. And it was the most miserable hell. I mean, for years, I mean, my whole life, I can remember back to my teenage years feeling like I am this just horrible human being and there's something wrong with me. And just years of torture and, oh my gosh, 3 marriages, like just, and then the damage that I did to my family with my tongue, with my actions, with just horrible, horrible things. But all of that formed me. All of that was my experience. And if it hadn't gotten that bad, I never would have been so miserable that I would have made such a huge shift in my thinking. And I wouldn't have ran so far away from the pit of mental illness hell. And I wouldn't have the experience that I have in the trenches to be able to go to those people now. Like, for instance, I have this client she was a child sex slave from the age of 5 to 14. And she was so timid when I first started working with her. And I was able to just love her and to just really get into that pit with her and get into that puddle with her. And I'm so thankful now that I had this experience so that I was able to be a peer with her, not I am therapist Emily, and I am going to impart my knowledge onto you and make you a better person. That wouldn't have worked with her. I needed to get on her level. I needed to get down with her and to experience that torment, that torture that she was experiencing on a daily basis, to be able to transform her experiences to show her her inner power. And oh my gosh, she's knocking it out of the park now. I mean, she's just like a completely different person. And I watched her literally transform before my very eyes. And it was just like, okay, like this was worth it. This was all worth it. And I know that the best is yet to come. I can't wait to continue this work.
Emily, what you just said is honest to God. And I'm just relating everything you said to my own story. Is probably the most powerful thing that anybody's ever said on this channel. And, you know, it's like, I hate to make this about me at all. I really do. But part of the reason why, when Annabelle told me about you, and I thank Annabelle so much for introducing me to you, that when I heard about your story, I was just like, that's exactly how I feel. And I've never heard somebody relay it as well, in terms of being it's so hard on your family, the torture every day. And it's something that I'm in the thick of right now. But one thing that really helps me get through the day is thinking that maybe there's some kind of plan in this for me, you know. And I know that there's so many valuable lessons that could be learned through this struggle. And so it's such a nice thing to hear you say that. I just wanted to say that. I don't really have a question to ask around that, but yeah, I just wanted to say that. Sorry.
That's awesome. No, that's incredible. And I really believe that the power of life and death is in our tongue, and it's in our thoughts. And it depends on how we write that narrative. I can look at my past and go, oh, poor me, I'm such a victim. All of these horrible things happened. Or I can say, I am a warrior and I was trained for this. And I am equipped for this. And I am going to be better than ever. And I'm thankful that I'm not neurotypical. I am so thankful for that, because it allows my brain to think of things that the neurotypical brain wouldn't even occur to them. I have to be completely out of my mind to sit here and go, I don't need my license. I'm going to go be a coach. I'm going to go just ask for self-pay. I don't need insurance. To start my own business, like, and to say publicly, I'm mentally ill, but I help people with mental illness. So come here, let me help you. I'm crazy. Let me help you. You have to be a little bit of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole reason why I started this channel, right? Is for sick people to try to find a way to heal, and to know that this isn't all for nothing. You know, I think that's the most important message of this channel. And the strength that is derived from this kind of stuff is just unbelievable. I had no idea that I would be this strong of a person ever, not in a million years, right? I think a lot of people could relate to that. And I think that's why your story is so inspirational, because you've made it to the other side. You've crawled through that, you know,
pit of mental illness,
100 yards of crap, and you made it to the other side. And it's just, I just want people to know, and this is the sort of the crux of why your story is so important, is that when you make it to the other side, people don't regret it. People don't regret having gone through all this. You know, you can't, it has to be for something, right?
And the perspective that I have now, when I was in the trenches, I was down here and everything was so dark and so heavy and so confusing. And then as I pulled out, it was just like, I was able to look down on the maze and go, oh, this had to happen so that this could happen, so that that could happen. And now I see a way out. And now I know that if anything else blocks my way, I'm going to have another path on the way around it. And everything is so much clearer now.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that God gives us whatever we can handle, and that we're supposed to become stronger, and we've come here not to just have a peaceful existence, but to really feel. And to feel something requires that you go through some kind of pain and suffering and struggle, because without suffering there is no joy. You can't feel joy if you haven't felt the suffering. It's not possible. It's, you know, as we get stronger and stronger, you kind of do look at things differently, and you know that you're ready to fight and that you can take on anything. But no matter what else they do to us, at least we know that, at least for now, we have the ability to think and feel and create, and they can't take our souls, and they can't take that away from us. They can't take God away from man as much as they try, you know?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Um,
Annabelle, did you have some more questions?
I was going to ask you, do you have any more questions?
Well, so where are you planning on taking this, Emily? So obviously you reached a point, you have so many incredible things going on. Um, what are your thoughts for your future? I mean, you have such a bright future ahead of you. You have the world in your hands. So what are you going to do with that power?
Oh my gosh. We could do a whole nother show on that. And I don't know how it's all going to transpire, but I do see the vision. And I'm so excited. My husband and I have a vision for creating a resort that we build where we can have like a rehab for people, that they can remove themselves from, you know, the being inundated with the media and the propaganda and even their own family, with the sugar and the processed foods. And that's what we focus on mainly, is removing sugar and processed foods. It's not about just carnivore. It's just about removing sugar and processed foods. And then we find that people are more satiated on fatty meats. So, I mean, that's our big dream. Also a nonprofit, where we can be able to go and, because I started this on food stamps. I started this with nothing. I started eating this way with nothing, living in a camper. And so I can show people how to do this with very little money. But obviously I can't I can't, like, they can't hire me, but I can do this in a nonprofit way to go into like the inner cities and help like single moms, or help, like right now I have a pro bono case that I'm working with a homeless man who just came out of living in the woods for 6 months, and he's completely crazy, has bipolar disorder, non-medicated, refuses medication. And so these people that rescued him said, okay, he won't take medication. Can you help him? And I was like, yeah. So I love it. Like, I love doing stuff like that. And then obviously I'm going to continue my work in my 8-week system, where I literally hold people's hand and I walk them through this whole process of the transition. Because it's scary when you don't know what to expect with the keto flu and the keto rash. And, I call it death breath. Whenever you get that like horrible breath, whenever your body is dying off all of those bacteria and stuff. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, actually, the more that the people who, for example, non-profit and who can't afford it, the more it will be a similar story to you. I can imagine where that if they start something like this, the universe is just going to keep giving and giving and giving. And then the better their brains will work, the more opportunities they'll be able to get. So they might start on food stamps, but they'll end up, just smashing it.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe that what I think about is like mining. I'm mining for like diamonds, because the people that society has thrown away, like schizophrenics. Oh my gosh, I love working with schizophrenics. I love working with very severely mentally ill people. And I have this amazing skill set that a typical carnivore coach couldn't work with them, because they'd be like, oh my gosh, they're crazy, or they're talking to another person right now, or whatever. Or like that, the child sex slave, she would revert to her 6-year-old self, and she would start talking like a 6-year-old. And so in the sessions, I was able to remind her, no, remember, you're an adult now. Nobody's hurting you. You are safe. And she would snap out of it. And she's like, oh, okay, you're right. Thank you. And so I'm able to go into the muck and really mine out these diamonds. And these people are phenomenal. They're going to be incredible members of society and bring beauty to the world that we've never seen before, because they're not neurotypical. They are going to create things that we can't even imagine. And everybody else is throwing them away. But I want to go mine for diamonds and let them shine.
Wow. That's incredible. I personally don't have anything else to say to that. I think that my mind is so blown that I can't think of anything else I could possibly.
I think we could definitely take this down a lot of rabbit holes, but we'd love to have you back at some point, Emily. I really appreciate you coming on. Annabelle, You're an amazing co-host. I think you should just take over my show completely, to be honest with you. But Emily, where can we find you? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
EmilyPenton.com.
EmilyPenton.com. All right, there you go. And you can also find her on Instagram. Get a hold of her. Join her group. Where can we find your group?
EmilyPenton.com. It'll give you all the information there. It's just like a bio link, and it has all of the links. And you can find my YouTube, you can find my Instagram, you can find my Facebook. Everything's there.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks again so much, guys, for joining in, and stay tuned for more. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.